You know, most cities are famous for things like art, or food, or music. Prague? Well, Prague is famous for throwing people out of windows. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a political tradition so specific and so strange, it has its own word, and its story has shaped centuries of European history. And that word is defenestrate. It literally means to throw someone out of a window. And while it sounds like some kind of bizarre one-off event, in Prague it became something else entirely. It was a recurring, history-shaping act of political protest. So that's the big question we're tackling today. How on earth did this act of political violence become an almost traditional tool for change in one single city? I mean, why windows? And why Prague? All right, so our story begins way back in the 15th century with an act of mob justice that would end up plunging the entire region into a conflict that lasted for decades. It all started right here, at the new town hall in Prague. So picture this, it's July 30th, 1419, and the square outside is just filled with an angry crowd. They were followers of this radical preacher, Jan Zalewski, and they were marching to demand the release of religious prisoners being held by the city council inside this very building. So how did it all go down? Well, it escalated in four pretty tragic steps. First, you have the march and the demand. But when the town council flat out refused to even negotiate, the tension just skyrocketed. And then came the final spark. Someone up in a high window throws a stone down at the crowd. Big mistake. That single act was all it took. The crowd's anger just boiled over, and they stormed the hall. Once they got inside, they found the judge, the burgomaster, and a bunch of town councilors. And one by one, they were dragged to the windows and hurled out, onto the spears of the crowd waiting below. I mean, it was brutal, it was public, and it was politically seismic. And here's the crucial takeaway from this first event. This wasn't just some random riot. This single act of violence was the spark that lit the fuse for the Hussite Wars, a really brutal religious conflict that would tear through Bohemia for nearly 20 years. Now, you'd think an act like this would always lead to war, right? Well, let's fast forward to our next event in 1483, because the story takes a completely unexpected turn. So yeah, 64 years later, history basically repeats itself. Religious and political tensions were at a boiling point again, and during a citywide coup, the old town burgomaster and 7 new town councilors were all thrown out of windows from their respective town halls. But here's the incredible twist. Instead of kicking off another war, this act of violence actually shocked both sides into negotiating. It led directly to the Peace of Kutna-Hora, which was this landmark agreement that guaranteed religious freedom and brought decades of peace. So think about that. A defenestration that actually prevented a war? It's the great irony of this story. But the most famous one, the one that would have consequences far, far beyond Bohemia, happened in 1618. This is the defenestration that literally reshaped the map of Europe. Okay, so a little backstory here because it's super important. For years, this document called the Letter of Majesty had given religious freedoms to the Protestant population of Bohemia, and that was most people. But the incoming king, Ferdinand II, was a devout Catholic, and he had zero patience for Protestant rights, so he started rolling them back. So, on May 23, 1618, a group of furious Protestant noblemen marched into Prague Castle and up to this very chancellery room. They were there to confront the emperor's royal governors, the guys they blamed for taking away their freedoms. One of those governors was this guy, Count Wilhelm Slavata. He, along with his colleague Count Martiniz, were known Catholic hardliners. And let's just say they were about to become the direct targets of all that Protestant rage. The leader of the Protestants, Count von Thurn, did not mince words. He turned to the governors and delivered this chilling accusation, making it crystal clear that he saw them as traitors to their religious rights and that their lives were now forfeit. And with that, the argument was over. The two governors, Slavata and Martiniz, and their secretary, Philip Fabricius, were grabbed and hurled from the third-floor window, plunging 70 feet down into the castle moat below. Now here's where it gets even crazier. Miraculously, all 3 men survived the fall. But their survival didn't bring peace. Oh no. In fact, it ignited a fire that would end up consuming Europe for a generation. So how did they survive a 70-foot fall? Well, immediately, 2 totally different narratives popped up. Catholics claimed it was a divine miracle, that angels or the Virgin Mary had literally caught them. Protestants, though, had a much more, well, let's call it an earthly explanation. They said they landed in a giant pile of manure in the castle moat. And you gotta appreciate history's dark sense of humor. This secretary, Philip Fabricius, was later rewarded by the emperor for his troubles. He was given a brand new noble title, Baron von Hohenfall, which, of course, literally means Baron of Highfall. You can't make this stuff up. But the real outcome here wasn't a joke. The number that truly defines what happened next is 30. That one act in Prague was the direct catalyst for the 30 Years' War. It was a brutal, continent-wide conflict that redrew borders, shattered empires, and killed millions of people. All because 3 men were thrown out of a window. And you'd think the story ends there. But the shadow of the window is long in Prague. It stretches all the way into the 20th century. Okay, flash forward to 1948. The communists are consolidating their power in Czechoslovakia, and the nation's beloved foreign minister, Jan Masaryk, is found dead on the pavement right below his bathroom window. The official report from the new regime said it was suicide, but almost nobody believed them. The case has been a political hot potato ever since. It was reopened decades later and ruled a murder, only to be shelved again for lack of evidence. To this day, the mystery remains, but in the minds of many Czechs, it's simply known as Prague's 4th defenestration. So what are we supposed to make of all this? 3, maybe 4 pivotal moments in history decided by a fall from a Prague window. Was it a bizarre political tradition? A uniquely effective tool for protest? Or just one of history's darkest and strangest coincidences, forever haunting the streets of a single city?